Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda, and this is a vlog of me unmasking my autism and ADHD ever since getting a diagnosis about 2.5 years ago. Have you ever had one of those days where the minutes keep clicking by and you're like, what have I even done today? Um, and it's just like my executive functioning. I've been wanting to start this video for like over an hour, and I'm like, I'm just gonna hit play. So if I had taken time to clean up the mess behind me and make my environment look really pretty for a video, I would have just gotten more ADHD distracted and it would have never happened. There's my cat Magic. So she's over there sleeping, and then my pug is currently right here, but he's off camera. Watson. Anyway, so today's video, I want to talk about parasocial relationships because I think that it's a really important topic, especially for many autistic people. So, first off, let me define what a parasocial relationship is. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about it, because y'all know me, I vlog my personal experience most of the time, and I realized that I had gotten caught up in a parasocial relationship, and it was teetering onto the part of where it wasn't healthy. And so I basically had to like call myself out and take some steps to create some own personal boundaries so that my mental health would be okay. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what that is and how parasocial relationships can be really healthy, but if you're not careful, then they can also maybe cause some mental health or some anxieties and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm going to read a definition of what a parasocial relationship is. A parasocial relationship is a one-sided emotional connection or feeling of intimacy that a person develops with a media figure, such as a celebrity or a fictional character, even though there's no real-life interaction. This means the individual feels a sense of knowing or familiarity with the figure, often viewing them as a friend or confidant, despite never having met them. And, feeling of intimacy doesn't necessarily mean a sexual intimacy. It could also just be, a connection that you are feeling with this person. Like many of the people that we follow online because we have a connection with their points of views, like the things that they are talking about resonate with us. So we're connected with their content and who they are. Okay, so that's kind of, I just wanted to, a lot of people have the word intimacy tied up with sexual, and it doesn't always mean that. Some key characteristics of parasocial relationships are that they're one-sided. The individual invests emotional energy and time into this relationship. And I say that in quotes because it's not actually it's a one-sided relationship. So it is a relationship, but it's not, what you normally think of when you're talking about a relationship with friends or family or loved ones. So it's one individual is putting emotional energy, and the other person, the media figure, is unaware of the existence of the relationship. And this is one thing that I think needs to be updated when people are talking about parasocial relationships, because the original definition came about with just media and radio. But now that we have moved into things like bloggers and TikTokers and YouTubers, there may be some connection, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. imaginary. The connection is based on an illusion of intimacy created by media consumption. Strong feelings. Sometimes individuals in parasocial relationships can experience strong feelings of attraction, loyalty, or longing for the media figure. Again, this one is like they're wording it much more where it's like wanting it to be a romantic connection, and that's not always the case. It can be that you are trying to create a platonic connection with a person. Emotional impact. These relationships can have significant impact on the well-being, potentially offering comfort. So, they can be good, escapism, sense of community, but also potentially could lead to negative effects of unhealthy self-comparisons and spending too much time focusing on somebody who isn't having a reciprocal connection back. The concept of parasocial relationship started in 1956 and was introduced by sociologist Donald Horton and R. Richard Wohl, W-O-H-L, Wohl. I don't know how you say that, in their study of mass communication. Their work focused on the phenomenon of television viewers developing intimate feelings towards media personalities, even though there wasn't that reciprocal thing that I was talking about. So I've heard some people talk about parasocial relationship with radio personality, but when I think it got more kind of a concrete idea when TV started happening and people were starting to connect with TV characters and wanting to watch their favorite like soap opera stars and maybe even newscast people and somebody that they see every day at the same time, and people were kind of getting some kind of emotional payoff from viewing these celebrities. And then that's where the concept of this parasocial relationship came out, and people were sociologists and psychologists and stuff like that started to study it. Parasocial relationships affect the people in the autism community because one of the diagnostic criteria for being autistic is struggling in social arenas. That's not the exact wording, but and some of the benefits of a parasocial relationship is that it can provide an autistic person a safe place for practicing social skills, either by like scripting something in their mind that they might be saying to somebody. It can also give autistic people a sense of connection with somebody that they're following online that they might, struggle or have hard time creating in their like non-parasocial relationships. Some of the other potential benefits for an autistic person forming a parasocial relationship is that it can provide a sense of companionship. Again, it's not reciprocal, but you do especially like when you have these social media people who have like a nickname for the community and you feel like you belong and you feel like you're contributing. And especially like I said, again, on like TikToks, blogs, YouTube channels, when you are in the comment section and you're like contributing, then it feels like you've got some belonging. And that can be really helpful for people who might struggle to form close bonds in real life. So a healthy form of parasocial relationship is when you're admiring a public figure, but you keep your clear boundaries. You understand that they are not caring about you, that you're just getting entertainment and connection as a one-way kind of street. but it can become unhealthy when you start to rely on that relationship for your emotional fulfillment, or if you start to feel entitled of attention from a social media, or even like a superstar. Like, you know, a lot of people have a parasocial relationship with Taylor Swift, for instance, and Taylor Swift is not going to be like talking back to her fans on an individual basis. But if a fan started to feel like, um, you know, they are a super fan and they've written to Taylor and they've, bought all her merch, and she really should send them a personal note because they're such a super fan, then that obviously would delve into unhealthy levels of having a parasocial relationship. One thing is, like I said, autistic people, I think, can be more susceptible to creating parasocial relationships with the content creators and celebrities that they like to follow. I want to interrupt myself here because I forgot to add in this video, there are a lot of autistic people who absolutely do not fall into parasocial relationships because their brain sees them as fake and not real, and so it's not something they're interested in pursuing. Because of like our differences in social communication, the boundaries between what is a real relationship versus a parasocial one can get kind of muddy. And this is especially clear, again, with content creators, because some content creators do like to try to reply to the comments. And so you are getting some attention from that content creator. That attention could start to feel like a reciprocal relationship, but most content creators are replying because they do care. A lot of, not all of them, but most content creators do care about the people who are watching their content. And when someone comments, that they do want to engage back. But it's different because it's not they don't know you specifically as a person. So you are just one of masses that they're responding to. And so it's not really reciprocal because it's, again, still one way. Your comment represents a mass of people, right? But for a lot of autistic brains, that can get confused and blurred. And that did happen to me. That's why I'm going to talk about it. So I do want to pause here and say that I am bringing this up because it is something that happened to me as an autistic person. I'm not trying to call out any of my community or my fans. So I don't want you to be watching this video, and if you've left me comments or anything like that, that you are going, oh my gosh, Amanda's targeting me specifically. I am not, I promise. I appreciate the people who comment on my videos, and I do try to comment as much as I can. I can't tell you if you are forming an unhealthy parasocial relationship with me or if any other content creator. That's something you're going to have to judge for yourself. I haven't felt like anybody has pushed any kind of boundaries towards me, like on my side. But if you're feeling like, oh, Amanda's not responding to my comments, I really want her to, or, those types of things, then you might look to see if you are creating a parasocial relationship that isn't benefiting your mental health, whether it's towards me or anybody else. And to be honest and to be transparent and to be completely fair, it is possible to become friends with content creators online. That's one reason why, as an autistic person, and for me, when it happened to me, it got really incredibly blurry, because for myself personally, one of my really closest friends I met through YouTube. She was also a YouTuber, and we started chatting in the comment sections, and it moved into DMs, and then now we're really close friends, and it's taken off from there. And I have the same thing with another TikTok content creator. We started leaving comments and DMs, and but just because, and like I do respond to DMs on Instagram, but just because a content creator is responding to you in a DM does not mean that you are friends. And that's where it can get really blurry. But for me personally, I'm just trying to think. I've had two people that I've met. No, three people I've met on social media, become really close friends, and I'm kind of starting a fourth one that potentially might actually really be a friendship, not a parasocial relationship. But I'm not going to name the content creator because it's kind of irrelevant. But there's a content creator that I have been following for many, many years, probably like 8, 9 years. They are a very big content creator. And where it got fuzzy for me is because one of my real life in-person friends is friends with this other content creator. So I know them through a third person. And because of that, they did become aware of me as an individual. And because I'd been following them so long, and they responded to me in comment sections, and I did send them DMs. And over the years, we have chatted in DMs back and forth. And so I was starting to think, oh, they do know who I am individually. So because we had been chatting back and forth in DMs, my brain started to think, maybe we are starting a friendship, because sometimes friendships, they usually start slowly. But then when I took a step back and I paid attention, I started to notice that, one, there wasn't many, if any, times that they initiated a conversation. It was usually me starting a conversation, and then they would reply. Maybe one time, like a long time ago, they may have sent me a question about something, but I don't even know if that's for sure. So when I stepped back and realized that I was always the one initiating all the conversations, then I noticed that when their replies were coming to me, they weren't really necessarily inviting further interaction. They weren't asking me questions about myself. They weren't asking anything that would lead me to continue the conversation. They were not really giving away much more new information. It was usually just really polite responses based on whatever I said. So yeah, when I was getting responses from them, at first it was really exciting. But then when I took time to step back and pay attention to what type of responses I was getting from them, then I realized, oh, this is really one-sided. It's not a reciprocal conversation. And so then I started to question whether or not it was a budding friendship or a content creator who was being polite. And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with a content creator being polite to their followers. That is awesome, actually, and I wish more content creators would take time to respond to people. I know that it really can be busy, and the bigger of a content creator you are, the less time you have in your schedule to respond to so many people. So that also, though, again, is one of the things that tricked my brain, because this is a very large content creator. And the fact that she was responding to me at all made me, again, feel kind of special, feel like, oh, maybe there is potential for a friendship. So then what happened? If you saw some of my videos the last couple of weeks, I got some really bad bullying on Threads app, and I was feeling very overwhelmed. And I know that this content creator has dealt with some like online bullying sort of situations. So I reached out to her and said, "Hey, do you know any resources? Is there, what can I do? I'm really struggling." And then she wrote back a very kind response. And I really appreciated that answer. It was actually really helpful. But again, my brain got all confused again. And I don't blame myself. It is a little embarrassing, but that is kind of some internalized ableism going on. My brain is wired to struggle with social communication. So I have to give myself some grace. So at that point, I decided I was really very kind of going back and forth and just confused, and I needed some clarity. So I crafted a response, or first I said thank you for all the advice and stuff. And then I don't know, it was like a couple days later. I didn't like come right in after that with this, but a few days later, after I'd been mulling on it for a while, I said, because, she knew I was autistic, but I kind of reiterated that. I was like, hey, I'm autistic. And one of the things about autism is social struggles. And I do understand about parasocial relationships, and I do understand about content creators being kind. And you have always been very kind to me. But because I do kind of know you through a third person, and because we have been DMing, I am kind of wondering if you see potential for a friendship to develop, or, again, are you just being very kind, which I, again, respect and appreciate. I just really need a blunt, direct answer because of my autism. And that's not exactly, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly what I wrote to her. It was nerve-wracking, but I just knew that I was starting to want us to become friends, and I could not tell if that was the direction we were headed. I think deep down I knew. But I didn't want it to be, again, because it was going into that unhealthy section of parasocial relationships. I didn't want it to be that. I needed that direct answer. And because this is a very, very kind, because I wouldn't follow an unkind content creator, now would I? She did give me a very short, polite, and direct response, saying, unfortunately, she is not seeing this as a friendship, and thanked me for all my support over the years as a viewer and follower and stuff like that. She's very, very kind, but it did give me the clarity where it's like, yeah, I was wanting this, is not what it was reciprocating. I was reading into it the way that my brain wanted it to. And like I said, deep down, I probably know that because, like I said, I have made friends with content creators online before, and those headed in a very different direction. So, I'm pausing because it's like, I think like I said, I think I knew that deep down, but I couldn't let myself hear it until she said it directly. And I'm very appreciative that she was willing to be direct, because there's so many people who aren't, even if you ask for directness, which in the end could only hurt them in this kind of situation. But so anyway, hold on. I got to stop for a second. I wanted to make this video because I think it's something that's really important to talk about, especially, like I said, in the autism community, because having awareness about something and then our brain still kind of falling into that trap. And, like I said, I was very cognitively aware of what was potentially going on, but I didn't even want to see it or admit it for myself. But I knew that it was growing into something that potentially could get mentally unstable for me. So I was like, I need to start and create my own boundaries. So at first I thought I was going to just unfollow her across all social media just for my own, to cut off so that my brain could lose its attachment. But I do really, really, really respect this content creator, and her content means a lot to me. So I've decided instead, I'm not following her Instagram stories anymore, because that's more about her daily life, which made me pull into and feel like that friendship connection. And I'm no longer sending her DMs. And I may or may not comment on some of her videos, but so far I haven't. I wanted to give myself a break. I'm not going to watch her content for a while, just to give my brain kind of a break. Those are the boundaries I've set up for myself. But then I think after that time, I can then go ahead and start watching her YouTube videos again. I just won't, again, engage in sending her DMs or following her stories anymore. And I think those are clear, healthy boundaries for myself, for what I'm capable of. Some other people may need to set very different boundaries. So it really is a hard thing to navigate in today's modern society with content creators that do have a level of accessibility to us. Most people can kind of realize that if they are following someone like Taylor Swift or Jason Momoa or, a big name celebrity, that there's not going to be a reciprocal kind of relationship. And so that if you are engaging in their content and following their life and it's giving you entertainment and enjoyment and fun, it's pretty easy to keep a boundary and not get too into it. I mean, you have obsessed fans, but again, there's still a healthy level of obsession if you understand that you're doing it all for fun, versus getting actually mentally hurt or upset if you're not getting that reciprocal attention back, right? Most people can kind of feel that. But with social media content creators who do sometimes like your comments or respond, that can make the line a lot tricky, and it gets really, again, a lot trickier for autistic brains, especially ones who are craving connection, because that is human nature. It's nothing bad. But there's two things to be, important, cognizant of, is that anybody who is posting on social media, you're only seeing a sliver of their life. I'm vlogging my unmasking journey, but I leave a lot of stuff out because, there's only so much stuff that I feel like is okay to share to the public. Every single content creator is going to keep some of their life private. That's a healthy boundary for content creators. And secondly, most content creators, once they start to get several thousand followers, they're getting a lot of comments and DMs. And I mean, across platforms, I think I'm at 50,000-ish followers. And so we also have to set up our own boundaries, because we've got offline relationships that we're also tending. And then, yes, we do want to spend time commenting and talking to our followers. And I get a lot of enjoyment, and I like reading your comments, and I like responding to your comments. And the reason why I, make videos is because I like engaging in intellectual conversations with people, in comment sections. So, um, but that doesn't mean that it's a friendship. It means that it's an online communication, right? Anyway, I hope that this video gave you some to think about. If you feel like you are in a unhealthy parasocial relationship with any content creator or celebrity, I do think that talking about it, reaching out to a therapist if you can, and kind of creating and setting boundaries for yourself to give yourself some distance, and understanding that without it being reciprocal, it's not good for you. Then, I hope that you kind of pay attention to that kind of things, and go ahead and enjoy the fun parasocial relationships you're creating, because there is value in connecting and getting enjoyment from the people that we are connecting and communicating with online. So, thank you all for liking, sharing, all the things. It helps the video. My channel could really use some love right now because my views are way, 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 way down. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say. So I'll say goodbye. Thank you guys.